Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Martine, and if you are new here, I do videos on Vedic astrology mainly, but also with some tropical insights, and I focus on both relationship and natal astrology. And if you like this video and you would like to see more content from me, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel. Also consider clicking the notifications bell if you want to see when I will post a new video. Also, if you are interested in a private reading, I do readings in astrology on a variety of topics ranging from relationship readings to career to transits for 2-3 years, or solar return charts or predictions for 1 year, etc. You are free to email me at the email address that I will leave in the video description, and I can send you a pricing list and reading options and any other details that you might require. Also, I want to mention that I have started membership options on this channel, and the short of it, just to give you the short perks that you will get if you choose to join the membership section, you will get 1 extra video per month for each membership stage or tier. So for the first tier, you will get 1 extra video per month. For the second tier, you will get 2 extra videos per month, so you will have access to level 1 and level 2 videos. And for level 3 or third tier, you will get 3 extra videos per month. The level 1 and level 3 videos are going to be on a variety of topics, so basically anything related to astrology, but it will be content that is not shown on my regular usual videos, right? So this is members only exclusive content, and it can range from, tips and tricks on how to read a horoscope to, I haven't done this yet, but I plan on doing maybe members only astrological synastry for famous couples, for instance, or the analysis of famous people's horoscopes, but then I can also get into divisional charts, etc., etc. So all kinds of things. The level 1 or second tier of membership options is especially related to synastry astrology topics, meaning relationship-oriented astrology. So this could be things like how to discover which kind of partner archetype is right for you according to your horoscope, or it could be, again, different characteristics, whether you're going to have a good marriage according to your horoscope or a less than stellar marriage. But you can find more concrete examples in the lists that you will find in the video description, because I have added the playlists where you can already see all the videos that I have posted in each members section. So yeah, you can see what videos you will have access to from the ones that I have already done. But I will continue to post, like I said, 1 extra video per month for each level of membership. And in addition to that, in the members only section, you will have access to members only polls, and you will also have priority when it comes to getting your comments replied to on my channel. And you will also have stickers that basically show up next to your username that show that you are a member, and a couple of exclusive emojis. All right, so that's pretty much all the perks that you can have as a member on my channel. If you're curious, you can check the video description for more details as well, or you can click the join button under any of my videos to also see the prices, because the prices will be shown in your local currency. All right, in addition to the members only section, I also have a tarot channel, and I post there semi-regularly, and I will be linking the tarot channel in the video description as well as in the pinned comment. It's called Martine's Tarot. So if you are curious about tarot, if you're into it, maybe check out my channel, maybe subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening to this intro. And now I'm going to get straight into today's topic. Hello and welcome to my channel. So this is going to be the predictions for 2025 series. I know that I should have started a while ago, and for a bit I was kind of hovering back and forth between should I still do this series, Should I not do it? Those of you who have been watching my channel for a few years, you probably remember that I have done these predictions for, the year in question, like yearly predictions, a way back. I think I started with 2021, maybe. And I don't remember exactly if I did them until 2023 but I stopped, definitely didn't do them for 2024 because I did say at that time also I was running late and I didn't really have the time or energy to focus on them, and they are quite time consuming. But this time I said, you know what, F it. I feel like it's time to do the prediction series, and I did do a poll in my community page some weeks ago. I think it was more than a month ago, to be fair, and I asked how many of you would like to see your predictions for 2025, and pretty much an overwhelming majority said that they would be interested in seeing it. So I figured, hey, I'm not that late because 2025 still has at least another 11 months to go, so I figured better late than never. So here it is. I'm going to start with the predictions. As an introduction, I do want to say, again, mostly for those of you who have watched these prediction videos in previous years, you probably remember that generally I like to divide the year into subsections. This year was really complicated to do, so I'm not going to be able to do a chart for each subsection, because if I had to do that based on the planets that I normally look at for general predictions, which are Saturn, Rahu, Ketu, and Jupiter, I would have had to divide the year into like 5 different charts and, compute 5 different charts and arrange them and all that. So I chose to divide the year in just 3 different charts, and then 2 of those 3 charts have subdivisions. But you're going to see what I'm talking about in a more visual way when I get to each subdivision. You will see a chart with the general transits and more details on them. I do want to start talking about, I want to mention, okay, I'm not going to hold a long speech, but I want to mention again, just as in previous years, I have decided to focus on, like I said, Saturn and Rahu, Ketu, and then Jupiter, because these are the more slow-moving planets, so they spend a longer time in one sign. So obviously, it doesn't mean that these are the only transits you're going to be going through in 2025, because all the planets are transiting, right? As you probably know, the sun is going to be spending about 30 days in one sign. That's why everyone knows that they're born in Aries or Gemini or whatever, or, what all of the people who know their zodiac signs know, which is that the sun changes every month, like every roughly 30 days or so. And in addition to the sun, of course, there's the other planets. So each of them are going to be transiting through a sign. But because these are general readings, and of course it would be impossible to look at everything, because even with these readings, you're going to see, I think they're pretty detailed. I'm going to go pretty much in detail with a lot of things. But it would have been even more impossible to take into account all the transits. And then, of course, speaking of the subject of predictions, you also have to look at the dashas and the mahadashas and the antardashas and all the different types of dashas that you're going through, which are basically periods of your life that are ruled by a particular planet or a point like Rahu Ketu based on your time of birth, right? So every person is going through their independent individual dasha or sub-dashas, right? And like I said, there are also multiple types of dashas, but I'm not going to get into that. Those of you who come from Vedic astrology, and again, those of you who have been watching my videos for a long time, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. The rest of you, I do recommend that you also do a little bit of research, and you can also find some videos on my channel where I do briefly mention dashas and antardashas, although I don't think I've ever done a video that where I specifically focused on how to read dashas and antardashas. I don't know, maybe I should look into that. If you're interested, comment in the comment section. But this was the introduction. Another part of the introduction, actually, that I want to mention before I get into it is that you're going to see this on the charts that I have drawn, basically. that I have marked the aspects of the main planets, but I just want to remind you, just in case you have forgotten. Again, those of you who have watched my channel for a long time, you probably know this already, but as a recap, if you're looking at Saturn, according to Vedic astrology, Saturn has so-called special aspects. In fact, multiple planets in Vedic astrology have special aspects or one-sided aspects. So Saturn aspects the 3rd, the 7th, and the 10th houses from where it sits. Rahu, Ketu, and Jupiter aspect the 5th, aspect the 7th. Well, the 7th is not relevant because they're always in opposition to one another. So Rahu and Ketu are always opposite. So it's not really relevant to look at the opposition because that's where the other one is placed. But Rahu and Ketu are aspecting the 5th, the 1st, the 5th, and the 9th placements from where they're sitting. Also, of course, I didn't mention this, but of course they're aspecting and they're influencing the houses that they're actually sitting on, not just the aspects. The houses they're sitting on are the most powerfully impacted, but they also cast single-sided aspects. So yes, Rahu and Ketu are always in opposition, so that means if you have Rahu in the 1st house, Ketu will be transiting in the 7th house, right? Because they're always opposite one another. That's why on the charts that you're going to see, I have not even marked Ketu on the horoscope because it's understood that, you know, Ketu is in opposition to Rahu. And I might mention Ketu in the readings a little bit, but mostly I'm going to be focusing on Rahu. Another mention that I think is quite important is the fact that I have written down on the charts that I have drawn, I have written down the time intervals when these transits are going to be active. However, these time intervals, they are general. So bear in mind that the dates of the transits can vary by a few days depending on your location. So in order to know exactly when, let's say, Saturn is going to hit your 11th house, if you have Ascendant in Taurus, you have to actually compute your chart and do a transits calculation based on your actual physical location to know exactly the day and the minute when, you know, it's going to switch from Aquarius to Pisces, just to give you an example. But the dates that I have chosen are, you know, pretty accurate. Give or take, you know, 1 to 3 days, I would say tops, right? This is another mention. So, aside from this, yeah, I'm going to get straight into it. Oh, there's one more thing that I wanted to mention, which is that, again, you may remember this from previous years if you have been watching my channel for a long time, that I like to do my predictions in a random order. So what I do is, right now I actually have Astro Dice. Last time I used to just pick, you know, notes from like a little urn that I created myself. I would, you know, basically do like a raffle thing where I would pick each sign that I was going to do next in the series. But now I use Astro Dice, and I like to mix it up a little bit just because, you know, I don't feel like it's fair that Aquarius and Pisces are always last and Aries is always first, you know? So, I don't know. That's one aspect. And another aspect is, I don't know, it's just more fun this way for me to just do them randomly in a random order. And I pick the next sign, you know, by rolling a dice. So, just wanted to mention that in case maybe some of you are wondering why they're all scrambled. All right, that's pretty much what I wanted to mention, and this is the introductory part. There is going to be the same introduction for each of these videos, so if you listen to it once, yeah, you can, you know, you should just listen to it once. Oh, yeah, there's one more thing. There's one more thing that I want to mention, and again, I have mentioned this in previous years. You can apply these readings for your ascendant sign or your moon sign. And I'm talking about the ascendant sign and moon sign of the D1 chart, the D1 natal chart, not any of the divisional charts. Okay, I cannot vouch for divisional charts. You can also try to look for, I don't know, maybe look into it, tell me if you found some kind of weird coincidences with divisional charts, but I would not look into it because divisional charts are something else, all right, a different type of energy. But with respect to, the moon and the ascendant, you can definitely look at these predictions based on your moon and your ascendant sign, and there will be accuracy connected to it. With the moon sign, it's more to do with your internal landscape and your emotions and what makes you happy on a psychological plane. Let's say, what happens on your inner landscape more, not so much like actual physical things that are happening in your surroundings, right? Whereas the ascendant is a lot more about actual life events. So something to bear in mind. All right, that's pretty much it, and I'm going to get straight into the interpretation right now. Hello and welcome, Virgo. Yes, I know this is extremely late, so I am going to start with the apology for being so extremely late with the predictions for 2025. As I have said with some of the previous signs that I was also late with, I have had a lot of things interfere, and I've had a lot of health issues and all kinds of things. And I figured I should just finish the series either way. What I can tell you is, if I will continue with the predictions for 2026, I will start with your sign first, and I'm going to start with actually basically the backwards order of what I have done this year, so that, the people who had their readings the latest this year are going to get them the earliest next year. But I will still think about whether I'm going to do predictions for 2026 later. I'm just going to see if I have enough time and how I get organized by the end of the year. Either way, I am going to basically tell you the predictions exactly as I see them. So I'm not going to talk in the past tense, even though they started in January. So I'm just going to follow the same format that I used for all the other signs. So, and of course, since more than half of the year has passed, it would help a lot if you could think about how this resonated for you for the first half of the year, and maybe comment it in the comment section. It would help a lot, not just for my research, but for other people who are watching the videos. Okay, so I'm gonna get straight into it. So the first chart refers to the time frame between January 1st to March 26, 2025. This is the time when Saturn is in Aquarius, Rahu is in Pisces, and therefore Ketu is in Virgo. Jupiter is in Taurus. So for you, the main positive of this time, which of course is a continuation of 2024, because these transits have been going on for quite some time, at least a few months, before the end of 2024, these planets would have had the same positions in the same signs. So what this would mainly mean for you is Jupiter and Taurus in the 9th house. That is a lot of good luck. So Jupiter is the great benefic, and going through the 9th house, this is a very strong position for you. It would have brought a lot of opportunities. It would, again, I said I'm going to continue with the present tense, so it would bring a lot of opportunities for you. And especially since Jupiter in your horoscope rules the 7th house, and it also rules the, the 4th house, this would be a great time to meet a significant romantic partner, or if you are in a serious relationship, this could actually be a good time for a wedding, especially since both the 9th and the 7th houses connect to marriage. And aside from this, the 4th house can also show opportunities for relocation. But of course, for relocation, you would have to look at specific configurations within the natal horoscope, because it's not enough to just have a transit and to determine that this is a good time for relocation. But if there are other configurations in the horoscope, and if there is support from the dashas and the antardashas, this could definitely signify a time of relocation, or at least traveling long term to a foreign country. Now, because the 4th house is also real estate, vehicles, relationship with the mother. All of these things will be favored during this time. Relationship with the mother is going to be good generally, as well as the relationship with the father, actually, because Jupiter is in the ninth house. So the ninth house is the father's teachings, and Jupiter is the guru. This can also show, of course, that you might meet some kind of a mentor during this time, or if you already have a mentor or even a religious teacher or religious leader, your bond could become closer during this time. Or the teachings of the people that you follow when it comes to religion, when it comes to higher knowledge, are going to become particularly beneficial for you during this time. Of course, in addition to all of this, Jupiter going through the ninth can also show that your interest in learning matters of the ninth house is going to be particularly strong. So getting into philosophy, religions, spirituality, also learning about foreign cultures, that could also really stand out. And of course, because it's the ninth house and connected to the teachings of the father, this could also show that you might become particularly interested in learning about your father's side of the family. Maybe you're going to be particularly interested in listening to your father's advice, but I would say learning about the father's side of the family, the culture, maybe stuff like that, I think would definitely become an interest. Aside from all this, this is also a very good time when it comes to real estate, in the sense that, of course, if you're looking to buy a property or move to a different place, this could definitely be a very favorable transit. The aspect of Jupiter on the Ascendant will tend to strengthen your vitality and your physical health overall. And also the same with the aspect on the 5th house and also on the 3rd house, but especially on the 1st, because that is your physical body especially. Another thing that can happen is you overall are going to be more optimistic. You're going to have a more of a, how should I put it? Kind of go-getter. Well, kind of, yes. You're going to feel more confident that your actions are going to lead to success, basically. With the aspect on the 3rd house, your communication is going to become stronger. Relationships with neighbors are going to mostly be positive during this time, as well as relationships with younger siblings. You're going to be favored for traveling during this time, absolutely. Short-term, long-term travels, any kind of travels. Also, the aspect on the 5th house will show that this is a good time to lean into hobbies or finding new passions, as well as pursuing higher education, because the 5th and the 9th houses are both touched by Jupiter, and this is going to make things run pretty smoothly when it comes to higher education during this time. You are very favored from this aspect. And of course, since Jupiter is sitting in the 9th and it's also aspecting the 5th, this is going to be very good for your finances. This is a good time to invest money. It's a good time to learn about investments. You might even have sudden windfalls, but I'm not going to encourage any kind of risky behaviors. And of course, as I always say, you have to look at the individual horoscope to actually see how likely this is. But normally when Jupiter is aspecting the 5th house, provided that there are no massive malefics in the 5th house and no massive damage to the 5th house, it also is worth to look at Ashtak Varga scores to see what the score of the 5th house is. So if multiple things are aligning in addition to this, it could show a significant windfall. So it can even be a good time to, play the lottery, or you might just find yourself winning prizes or money somehow. Even at work, getting a bonus, for instance. Aside from this, relationships with children are going to be good. And in addition to this, if you want children, this is a good time for conception, getting pregnant, and even childbirth. People will also tend to see you in a more positive light than usual during this time because of Jupiter's aspect on your ascendant. So they might see you as more trustworthy, wiser than usual. And Now, of course, the biggest challenge during this time is Saturn in the 6th house, technically. However, Saturn in the 6th house can also bring some positive aspects. One positive aspect is the fact that Saturn tends to deal very well with workplace drama. So if there are any situations of, bullying at work, toxic work environments, which are, according to statistics, pretty common, if not the majority of workplaces are actually toxic. But yes, so if there's any kind of work drama, you're going to see this settle by the end of this transit. So by the time Saturn moves away from Aquarius, you're going to see that your enemies, for the most part, are going to be defeated or overcome. Of course, as usual, things have to be looked at from the individual horoscope perspective, but for the most part, when Saturn is going through the 6th house, it does a pretty good job at clearing out all karma. And aside from this, though, Saturn in the 6th house can show that it will be hard to find a job. If you are looking for a job, if you do have a job, this is not a very good time to quit it, because it will be harder to find a new one. Now, of course, again, I always issue the disclaimer, you have to look at individual horoscope configurations. There could be things that influence this that will, make it not as severe and make it easier for you to get a job. But for the most part, when Saturn is transiting through the 6th, it generally shows that there will be a lot of responsibility connected to the area of employment. And this is especially true for people who are employed as opposed to self-employed, because of the 6th house influence. It's the house of service, right? And Saturn generally is a hard taskmaster, so it will want you to work hard for your money. It will want you to work hard to keep your job even. Aside from that, because of Saturn in the 6th, it also wants you to have a humble attitude, right? So if you are employed and if you are, let's say they're going through layoffs or something, you have to do your best to keep your head down and just focus on being of service. That is the best way to impress your bosses and to keep your job. And yeah, you might just find yourself with increased workloads during this time, because that's usually what happens whenever Saturn touches an area of life. It increases the burdens, so to speak, the obstacles sometimes. Let me think. Well, overall, the responsibility. Saturn is all about the responsibility. And yeah, aside from this, with Rahu in the 7th house, let me stick to Saturn because I still have some stuff to say. So Saturn going through the 6th house is also potentially challenging when it comes to your health. Now, Saturn in your horoscope actually rules the 5th and the 6th houses, which makes it a pretty strong influence. So again, the defeating of the enemies is definitely very likely to happen. And in addition to that, though, there could be conflicts happening with your children. So if you have children, there could be conflicts happening with your children. If you have a romantic partner, irrespective of whether you are married or not, you might see an increase in conflict during this time. And Saturn really, because it rules the 5th and the 6th houses, and Rahu is sitting in your 7th, yeah, this is a time when you have to be careful not to be suddenly frustrated with your romantic partner, especially a marriage partner, but it can be any kind of long-term relationship that you are in. With Rahu going through the 7th house, there can be a feeling of dissatisfaction in the current relationship, a tendency to kind of notice every new shiny opportunity around you. So like if you see a potentially new interesting romantic crush of like you might see people that suddenly catch your eye, for instance, and start to make you feel like maybe it would be more interesting to date a different partner than your current partner. But this is because Rahu tends to kind of lead people astray during its transit. And this is going to be particularly true for you if you're also going through the Rahu Dasha or Antardasha during this time when Rahu is transiting through the 7th house. Right? So you might see situations of just being frustrated with the current romantic partner. In addition to this, though, in addition to this, if you are single and you are looking for partners, right, when Rahu is transiting through the 7th, this can definitely be a good time to meet potential romantic partners. However, and again, especially so if you're also going through a dasha or antardasha of Rahu. But you're going to find yourself being drawn to someone who is exotic, someone who is different from your culture, from your religion. So, see how this resonates. It's either someone who's from a different culture or just someone who's a very unconventional relationship choice. Someone who would normally not been your type. Would normally not have been your type. Anyway, you know what I mean. Aside from this, Saturn is aspecting the 8th house. So by third aspect, which is the effort aspect. So this means that whether you are conscious of this or not, whether it's, because you decide or because you are pressured by circumstance, you're gonna be forced to focus on 8th house matters during this transit. So that could be in-laws, it could be managing other people's finances. So the 8th house has to deal with anything that involves making use of other people's resources and money. So for instance, insurance, right? So if you work in insurance, by the way, this would make sense because, it would increase your workload. But then on the other hand, it would also mean that you're in a very suitable field according to these transits. Aside from this, though, the 8th house can be foreign cultures, foreign lands, especially foreign lands where there's a different language being spoken than your mother tongue. So focusing on foreign languages can be a thing. Like maybe suddenly, I don't know, you are forced to learn a new language because of your job. So you're going to suddenly find yourself in the position where you have to put a lot of effort into learning a foreign language. That could be one aspect. 8th house can also be, like I said, the in-laws. So for those of you who are married, this can be the family of your spouse. So one way or another, the family of the spouse might require more from you during this time. You're going to see maybe increased responsibilities in this area. At the same time, you might see kind of a coldness in the relationship to your spouse's family of origin. But this is particularly true for people who actually are married, so in a legal sense. Legal or religious, to be fair. Not so much for people who are in long-term romantic partnerships, without a contract. In that case, the 8th house refers to mainly other things, which I have mentioned partly, right? So it can be shared resources. It can be anything to do with insurance. By the way, you might, have to pay more. It could be paying more for your mortgage, like the mortgage could increase during this time. Although with the Jupiter aspects on the 4th house, it's unlikely to be super dramatic. Again, it depends on what is going on in the individual horoscope. But 8th house can just be an increase of responsibilities when it comes to loans, to debt, anything like that. So debt could increase. That could be a thing. On the other hand, you might just find yourself working harder towards improving your finances, your investments. Can also be anything to do with the occult with the 8th house. So just could also just mean a conscious effort on developing occult interests, right? That would include astrology, although I wouldn't exactly call astrology a cult. Most people would put it in the realm of the 8th house because it is unconventional knowledge. 8th house can also have to deal with psychology, digging deep into things, getting to the bottom of things. So this could also show that this could be a time when you will either, again, because you want to or because you feel pressured to, might decide to get into therapy, for instance. Okay. And Saturn looking at the 12th house, this can show Again, in a way, it's a good thing because any hidden enemies, for the most part, are being suppressed by Saturn. So Saturn is like clearing out old karma when it comes to your workplace or any competitors or people who are naysayers or who want to get in your way. They're going to be cleared out by the end of this transit. But then aspect on the 12th house can show if you have any plans of traveling to far away places, there might be frustrations and obstacles when you go there. So if you want to, I don't know, take a transcontinental flight, I mean, there might be issues there, like, I don't know, a delay of the flight, or there might be problems once you get there with the hotel, etc., etc., or maybe you won't feel that well when you get there. And again, I don't want to scare anyone because, again, a lot of this will also depend on individual configurations. But for the most part, when Saturn is aspecting the 12th house, it tends to show that when it comes to long distance and or long-term travel, there might be an increase of frustrations and obstacles and delays, of the results that you want. For instance, if let's say you have wanted to travel abroad for studies, there might be some issues with getting a visa during this time or something like that. Aside from this, the 12th house also shows the subconscious. It shows the dream state. So you might find yourself having heavier dreams during this time, maybe more nightmares or just more problems sleeping overall. Or on the other hand, you could find yourself sleeping a little bit too much with Saturn because of the heaviness of Saturn. And then the aspect on the 3rd house, this can also show that you could gain recognition during this time because of the way you talk, so because of your communication skills. Your mind also will be, especially during this time, will be really focused on, let's say, more psychic topics. Again, things that would border on the occult. Well, it makes sense because astrology is one thing, but it can even be more occult. Like it could be, I don't know, getting into Wicca, getting into tarot, understanding meditation, I don't know, getting in touch with the dead, getting a Ouija board, anything like that. So your mind, you might find, is more focused on like dreamy topics, like mysterious occult things. Yeah, so this is pretty much what I could say for the chart 1 phase. Moving on to the chart 2 phase, which is from March 26th to June 8th, 2025. So this is when Saturn and Rahu are moving together, quote unquote, into Pisces. And in your case, that means that they are getting into the 7th house. Now, when it comes to the Jupiter positions, as you can see on the screen, I have divided the Jupiter segment into 2 sections because it starts out being in Taurus until May 13th, and then it moves into Gemini until June 8th. So I haven't marked Jupiter on the chart, but I'm going to talk about it. Oh, one thing that I also wanted to mention, but I am going to mention it right now. So this is going to apply for both the chart 1 and the chart 2 phase. Ketu is in your Lagna, of course, because Rahu and Ketu are always opposite one another. And Ketu in the Lagna can make you let yourself go in some ways, quote unquote. In the sense that you may not care that much about your appearance as usual. You may not care that much about your health as you used to care. It depends, though. On the other hand, it can also show that you might really, you might actually try pretty hard in some ways to improve your physical appearance. So it depends. It's like it can go both ways. Either you're going to feel a kind of detachment, either you're going to become particularly focused on developing your physical appearance or your physical body, right? So this could refer to actually your image, the way you carry yourself, the way you dress, or it could be that you feel a desire to strengthen your body, like get into a training program of some kind, like physical training, I mean. And yeah, but somehow the physical body can be a source of focus for you during this time. And this is again for both chart 1 and chart 2. And Ketu sitting in the Lagna, aspecting the 5th, aspecting the 9th houses. This is interesting because I know that in the chart 1 phase, I said that this will be a very good time for you to study, to go in depth, to maybe even get into formal education. With Ketu's aspect on these houses, there might also be a kind of apathy and a kind of lack of interest towards an education, at least an education of the conventional kind, right? So Ketu, unless it's like something that you're truly very interested in, something that naturally captures your attention, and or unless it's something that's research oriented and or spiritual, right? In these cases, Jupiter and Ketu would work together very well. So this would apply for the time frame from around January 1st until May 13th when Jupiter moves into Gemini. So throughout this time, you would see, a strong desire to get into research on occult topics and spirituality, right? Because of that Ketu in the first house. And then also this is true for the entirety of the chart 1 and chart 2 phases. The entirety of the time when Ketu is in your Lagna, you're going to see that you are potentially more sensitive than usual, right, to your environment. Maybe you will have a stronger desire to be introverted. And this is going to be especially true in the chart 2 phase when, again, especially when Jupiter enters Gemini from around May 13th. Because then Jupiter will stop looking at your Lagna with its aspect, right? So it's going to move into your 10th house, which is very good in some aspects as well. It's just that it will not aspect your Lagna anymore. So Ketu is going to be there alone with an aspect from Saturn. So you're way more likely to be introverted during this phase, kind of go within and maybe become shy and even have a tendency to isolate in some ways. There is, throughout this entire time when Rahu is in the 7th, there will be a strong interest in relationships, right? So even for someone who maybe for some reason has been single for a long time, or someone who, let's say, has ended a relationship recently and has decided not to focus on relationships, you might still find yourself really wanting a romantic relationship. However, during this chart 2 phase when Saturn and Rahu are together, it's a bittersweet situation. So in your case, it's not super negative because Saturn is ruling the 5th house. So Saturn is ruling the 5th house, Lord of the 5th house, going into the 7th house. This is definitely, in some ways, a very good time to find a romantic partner, to start dating. However, you will find that the kind of partners you attract, or the kind of partners that you end up in a relationship with during this time, if you are looking for one, will be very Saturnian. So they will be pretty serious, take it slow. You yourself actually may find yourself being very serious about relationships during this time. Especially, again, in the chart 2 phase, and especially when Jupiter enters Gemini from around May 13th. Yeah, so you will definitely favor a solid, stable relationship with these influences. And at the same time, though, relationships will tend to be on your mind during this time. So everything I said about Rahu is still going to stand. And now Saturn in the 7th house, again, with Saturn and Rahu, 2 malefics in the 7th house, if you already are in a relationship, this can be a challenging time, all right? Even though in some ways it is not super bad because you do have the 5th house influence because Saturn is ruling your 5th house. So it could also show that there will be more focus on romance, but in a quiet, restrained way. That's the way Saturn likes it. And on the other hand, it can show more conflict with the romantic partner because the Lord of the sixth house, well, both lords of the sixth house, actually, Saturn and Rahu together, are sitting in the seventh house. So you will suddenly maybe drive each other nuts. Like if you're living with a romantic partner or a spouse, you might just find yourself getting more just stepping on each other's toes more often. There might be more of a feeling of dissatisfaction in the relationship, particularly on your part. Like I said, to a large extent, this could also be because Rahu tends to kind of, create a mirage for people, like for instance, you might find someone who's new and exotic and catches your eye, and you might be tempted to leave your current partner. And whether this is worth it or not, of course, would take some soul searching. But what you should bear in mind if you are going through a frustrating time is that Rahu can cast smoke and mirrors, right? So it can create illusions. Don't just throw in the towel because you suddenly get bored or because your relationship is going through a rough patch. Because if it is just smoke and mirrors, of course, once the transits pass, you might regret it. So the bottom line is you have to be careful not to get overly confrontational, maybe not to start arguments out of small reasons. Not saying, of course, don't argue when you are justified, but just pay attention to whether you are just being more easily annoyed than usual and just lash out of nowhere, or maybe even consciously or subconsciously, you could be seeking out arguments with your romantic partner. Of course, all of this can also apply to a relationship with a business partner as well, if you have one. Now, Saturn, if you are single, like I've said, but I'm going to repeat it. So if you are single, Saturn and Rahu is not an entirely bad transit. It could actually show a time of meeting a potential significant romantic partner. But with this aspect, I would definitely recommend looking at, individual horoscopes to see if there are other supportive configurations to suggest this. And again, this would be especially true if the seventh house is also activated through transits or dashas. Sorry, not transits, because these are transits, so it is activated through transits, but dashas especially, right? So if you're going through the dasha of Saturn or Rahu, or the antardasha of Saturn or Rahu, I would pay attention to those times with respect to, potentially meeting a new romantic partner if you are looking for one. Okay. Now, Saturn is aspecting the ninth house by third aspect. So until May 13th, Jupiter is going to stay in the ninth house as well. Saturn is also going to cast its aspect, but it's not going to be strong enough to create any major problems. It's just that you're going to see more responsibility again being placed on the ninth house. So if you're in a formal education program, of course, this could show an increase of exam stress or projects that have to be turned in or God knows what, right? So it's just going to require more effort on your part. Again, when it comes to the topic of travels, particularly traveling to foreign countries, when Saturn is looking at the ninth house, this can bring a little bit more obstacles, more frustrations when it comes to traveling. So plan ahead, don't take any unnecessary risks. And especially since Saturn rules the sixth house in your case, I would definitely be careful when it comes to your health. So take precautions when you're traveling. Again, don't take unnecessary risks. Maybe take, some basic pills with you if you're traveling somewhere, right? So just to make sure that if you get sick, you have some basic first aid stuff. And this is going to stay true throughout the time when Saturn is in Pisces, basically. Yeah. And Saturn looking at your ascendant, like I said, it can make you more introverted, maybe more self-critical as well. However, because Saturn rules the fifth house, this can also show a very strong desire for self-improvement, right? So you might really want to increase the strength of your body, your health, and it can also show that your mind actually influences your health a lot. And I don't want to get too much into woo-woo or The Secret, because I don't fully believe in that stuff, to be honest. I mean, to some extent, yes, I do, but okay, I'm not going to get too much into it. The bottom line is that if you are, let's say, suffering from an illness, you have to be careful not to make it worse through negative thinking, overreacting, overly worrying about things, right? So things like that could potentially affect your health and your vitality. So it's more important for you to keep a positive outlook during this time. And because of that aspect on the 4th house, the relationship with the mother might be a little bit more tense during this time. And again, this is for the entire time when Saturn is going to be in Pisces. The relationship with the mother could be a little bit more tense, like I said. Could be a little bit more cold, maybe more distant. Maybe for some reason or another, you just cannot be as close to your mother as you would like, right? So, and that might cause some tensions. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much what I can say. Well, aside from this, actually, when it comes to health problems, you should be particularly careful about digestive problems. So anything that might be affecting the digestive system, especially the stomach. Also, anything that is potentially affecting, like something connected to your chest, the cardiovascular system in general, especially the chest. And also things like high blood pressure, low blood pressure, etc. These sorts of things might be more troublesome during this time. And again, as usual, always issue the disclaimer. Has to be seen from the, individual horoscope's perspective, because individual configurations can influence things quite a lot, either for the better or for the worse. Okay, so when Jupiter is moving into Gemini, it's going to be moving into your 10th house. So this is going to be in some ways a very good thing, and other ways potentially challenging. So it's going to be a very good thing because, well, whenever Jupiter is in the 10th, it tends to show an increase of opportunities when it comes to career, right? Now, Jupiter in Gemini is not exactly a very strong Jupiter, but then it wasn't particularly strong in Taurus either. But Jupiter in Gemini, it is a pretty strong, it is, see, here's the thing, Jupiter is the great benefic, right? So even if it's in Gemini, even though the sign doesn't give it the strength, the biggest strength, the biggest dignity and all that, because it's an enemy sign for Jupiter, right? So, meaning the sign that Jupiter governs is Sagittarius, which is the opposite of Gemini. So, in Gemini, it has a little bit of a scattered energy. However, that doesn't mean that it won't also bring some positive aspects. It can definitely bring opportunities, and especially since it's in Gemini, it will increase your power of communication. So if you're looking for any kind of a job where communication would be a strength, you would be very favored during this time. Publishing, writing, blogging, vlogging, anything, any form of communication, right? You're going to be really favored during this time. And anything that involves a lot of socializing as well, because Gemini is the social butterfly. And aside from that, it's going to bring job opportunities, career opportunities more likely during this time. But again, always to be looked at from individual configurations as well. Oops, sorry. So especially if you're also maybe going through the dasha or antardasha of Jupiter, this is going to be particularly emphasized and activated in your horoscope, right? So that would mean most definitely there will be some kind of opportunities in your career, some kind of step forward. On the other hand, what I was going to say with the downside is that when Jupiter goes through the 10th, it tends to bring this very moralistic, idealistic view into the workplace. So there might be problems with you, for instance, where you suddenly get annoyed at your company not having the same mindset as you, or the same ideals as you. Right. So you might just be frustrated somehow, like maybe things that you haven't even noticed before. So you could be working for the same company and maybe you just never paid attention to what their, let's say, stance on animal cruelty is. Just giving a random example, right? Let's say someone is working at a cosmetics company and just never bothered to care about what they're testing on or how they're doing their tests or whatever, and suddenly if you find out that they're doing something that you perceive to be is unethical, it's going to make it more difficult for you to keep working for this company because you're going to suddenly be really bothered by this, right? So Jupiter is basically, whenever it goes into the 10th, it's not a very comfortable position for Jupiter to be in, right? Because the 10th is all about the jungle. It's like corporate environments, it's struggle for position, for power and all this. And Jupiter is kind of a philosopher, you know, someone who is wise and cares about knowledge and the goodness of mankind and all this, an idealist basically, right? So there could be some kind of frustrations happening here. Now, because Jupiter is ruling the 4th house and going into the 10th house, this can also show that you might feel somehow exposed in a way, or you might feel like, this could literally translate into somehow personal information leaking out to your company, your boss, or something like that. And it could lead to some kind of frustrations in the sense that you don't want people to know about you, or you don't want people to know what your home situation is, your home environment is, right? It could be private stuff, basically. Like you might feel like somehow your private stuff is being leaked out to people, right? And in a way that is making you feel very uncomfortable. It could be like it's leaked out, or for one reason or another, you just might start to feel like people are scrutinizing you more, or they're prying into your personal business. People from work, you might find that some people are prying into your personal business, and it's really going to annoy you. On the other hand, this can also show that your home life might suffer during this time because of an increase of focus on the career, an increase of responsibility on a career, right? So you might be frustrated because you're spending less time with your family or less time at home, basically just chilling. Now, with Jupiter also ruling the 7th house and going into the 10th house, this can also show again it's it's the romantic partner, the romantic relationship, or it could be the concerns connecting the romantic relationship or the partner that are somehow affecting your work or affecting your career. So again, maybe watch out for this, because especially with these configurations with Rahu sitting in there, this is a recipe for disaster that might might actually lead to this very particular scenario. And the scenario I'm thinking about is having an affair at work, for instance, right? Not a good time to have an affair at work with these transits, especially since there are some malefics going on. Now, of course, a lot of this depends on especially where Mars is sitting in your horoscope. The reason I say that is because Mars is naturally ruling your 8th house, right? So if Mars is sitting in your 10th house during this time, definitely watch out, because you might be the target of a scandal or of office gossip or something that might really affect your career, your work, right? So another thing, though, is if you are single and ready to mingle, you could meet a romantic partner through the work environment, literally at work or somehow connected to work, right? Like someone from work might introduce you or something. Okay, aside from this, Jupiter is sitting in the 10th house, aspecting the 2nd, aspecting the 6th houses. So all of the money houses will be aspected when Jupiter is in Gemini for you, which is overall positive. You might find it easier not just to get a job and keep a job, or just see some kind of improvement in your career, not necessarily just for people who want to get a job. Even if you're self-employed, you might see an increase of business. And Jupiter looking at the 2nd and the 6th houses will show, the 2nd house especially will show it will be easier for you to save money, so it will show an increase of your income generally. And then the aspect on the 6th house will show that your health will significantly improve during this time. And it also can show that this is a good time for you to get a pet if you have considered getting a pet. The time when Saturn was going through the 6th house, not a good time for pets. I don't think I mentioned this, but I'm mentioning it right now, may have led to situations of frustration or suffering connected to pets. And also, Jupiter looking at the 6th house will show generally a good connection with people at work, your peers and everything. And then Jupiter will also be looking at the 4th house. This means relationship with your mother and father is going to be positive. Relationships at home, in the home environment for the most part, are going to be positive. And again, if you're looking to change your home or your vehicle, this is a positive time to do it, right? So Jupiter is supporting that activity, or maybe like improving or renovating your home. All of that is supported. Okay, this is pretty much what I see with the chart 2. Moving on to chart 3 and the final phase, which is going to apply for the current situation, basically, and it's going to continue until the end of 2025. So Saturn is staying in Pisces, Rahu is moving into Aquarius. Jupiter starts out being a Gemini until October the 13th, roughly, and then it will move into Cancer until the end of the year. And of course, it's going to continue further. So these, I haven't actually checked how far into 2026 they're going to continue, but these transits are most likely going to continue at least for a while into 2026. So anyway, basically, Rahu moving into the 6th, this is a big major change, okay? So finally, it's leaving the relationship situation alone, which will probably be a relief for you with this transit, to be honest. So it's moving into the 6th house. This can bring sudden situations involving, again, employment. And again, I don't want to scare anyone, but Rahu tends to be disruptive. So, and it's also interesting because Rahu rules the 6th and it's going into the 6th, right? So this can also show a lot of situations involving competition at work, dealing with enemies, again, is going to continue potentially. Aside from that, this can also show having to work with foreigners, people who are from foreign backgrounds, foreign cultures, or maybe just people who are way more different than you, all right? Maybe coming from a very different background. Aside from that, you might feel drawn to getting exotic pets all of a sudden when Rahu goes into the 6th house, okay? So, and this is going to... it's already started. So it's pretty much since around June 8th. That's when Rahu moved into the 6th house. You might feel drawn to getting exotic pets. Aside from that, with health issues, again, the digestive system is still something that I would suggest you keep under observation, especially if you also have Mercury connected to the 6th house somehow. Aside from that, there will be some frustration when it comes to your routines. You might find it harder to establish a routine, to maintain a routine. Like you might find yourself, suddenly being interrupted with all kinds of things. It's just going to seem more difficult than usual to maintain a routine. When it comes to your work, though, on a day-to-day basis, you might be forced more than usual to use technology, which might be true for a lot of people who, especially if they're working in IT and they're forced to focus on using AI. But either way, whichever the situation is, with Rahu in the 6th house, you're suddenly going to have to use some kind of state-of-the-art technology. Usually, well, nowadays it's mostly AI for a lot of people, but it can be all kinds of things. So, whatever the situation is, you might be forced to learn something new for your job, for your work, basically, that might be potentially a little bit of a challenge, but ultimately is going to lead to better employment and just progress in your career overall. This is very specific, but you might turn to foreigners for healthcare. Like a foreign doctor, foreign techniques, maybe traveling abroad for healthcare. I don't see travel abroad that strongly, actually. Let me see if there's other transits. Not so far, I don't see it. But I'm going to see if I notice something as I go along. But yeah, there could be some like an interest. Also, another thing that could come up is an interest in alternative medicine with this placement. Kind of a nonconformist approach to health all of a sudden. Saturn from the 6th house will be aspecting the 10th and the 2nd houses. So, and it's ruling the 6th house. So, there might be more conflicts during this time. There might be conflicts, especially with authority figures at work and people from work in general. Okay, there might be more obstacles, more conflicts, especially, right? So watch out for that. Don't get into unnecessary drama when it comes to your workplace, because you might get really caught up into it. And with the 2nd house, again, there could be just a more instability. So especially if you have not had a job when this transit started, you might find it more frustrating to find a job. Like you could have a lot of ups and downs, right? So I don't know, like you're going to an interview and everything seemed fine and they said they're going to call you, but then they never call, right? Or something like that, right? Or you could come across employers that are flaky, that are potentially even deceptive, I have to say, because Rahu is kind of connected to deception. So it is, worth it for you to be careful about this, cautious, especially when applying for jobs. I kind of had to interrupt a little bit, so I'm going to start from, the first thing that stands out. So Saturn in the 7th house, aspecting the 9th house, a lot of effort is going to be put into education again. I think I mentioned this, right? I did cover Saturn, sorry. The 4th house, yes, there might be cooler relationship with the mother figure, or another thing is that there will be potentially things to take care of when it comes to the home environment. So some unexpected works, maybe something might go wrong, although I would not worry too much about this unless you have the 8th house somehow involved with the 4th house, maybe. Then you might see some unexpected issues happening in the physical home, like a pipe bursting or something, having to fix the washing machine, things like that. Something unexpected happening. But for the most part, there might just be more work involved with taking care of the home, for instance, or the vehicles, more responsibilities. Aside from this, and of course, just another parenthesis, it could also show that your mother might require more attention. So maybe you might have to take care of your mother during this time, or some kind of mother figure, or it could be someone from the mother side of the family, some relative. Aside from this, right, so when Jupiter moves into Cancer, right, around October 13th. So far, everything else is pretty much the way that I have described them in previous sections. So Ketu is, Ketu actually will change. So thank God I remembered to talk about Ketu. It will switch from the 1st house into the 12th house in your case. So Ketu going into the 12th house, ruling the 3rd house, is going to show on the one hand that you're going to become even more psychic than usual. Your intuition is going to really develop during this time. Your dreams in particular are going to be quite vivid. You might have a bit of restless dreams, a lot. Another thing is that your mind, your conscious mind, your communication could really draw from your dream state, from your unconscious state. So your dreams could really bring some strong creative ideas or insights, and this would be particularly useful to you if you are a creative, right? You're operating in some kind of a creative field. Aside from that, though, the third house and the 12th house, they were both travel houses. So this is definitely going to show, it's going to show, ironically, a strong desire for travel, but maybe not so much physical travel as it will be like a travel between states of consciousness. So you might feel drawn to things like lucid dreaming, learning about the subconscious, maybe getting into the Silva method and programming your subconscious in order to fix different problems in your life. So if you have any kind of tendencies towards this, it will definitely help you during this time. Your mind is going to be very receptive to things like hypnosis or self-hypnosis and stuff like that. Aside from that, your mind can also be not just more creatively inclined and more imaginative than ever, but it can also be very focused on traveling. So not, like I said, not physically, but it could be a physical travel if it's going towards a place of pilgrimage, right? So going to religious sites, to some place that you've always wanted to go, going to a spiritual retreat, for instance, right? So you might be really drawn to these things during this time because of that 12th house and the Ketu influences, right? And the third house influence, right? So there's a lot of like wanderlust connected to this topic of spirituality in particular. And also this could be a concert as well, because the third house is about music. And another thing is, speaking of the third house, since, for those of you especially who have Ascendant in Hasta, and on top of that, maybe you actually do study an instrument, or you play an instrument, or maybe you are involved in music somehow, this is going to be a particularly fertile time. Or if you have ever considered learning an instrument, this is also going to be a very good time for you, right? So you might really want to pick up learning an instrument during this time, but your mind could just be very fertile, very creative, like getting very strong flashes of brilliance that you just pick up from the subconscious. Could even be this collective subconscious, not even your subconscious alone. But the dream state somehow, dreaming will be vivid. It will bring you a lot of inspiration. It might also be a good idea to actually write down, like keep a dream diary, especially because the third house is connected to the 12th and the third house is communication. So keeping a diary, can really be helpful this time to kind of make sense of your dreams and to draw inspiration and maybe just new insights into yourself and your psyche as well, aside from inspiration. And then Ketu is also going to be aspecting the 4th house and the 8th house. So it's going to be aspecting the water houses. It's going to make you very, very intuitive during this time. Very much focused on developing your intuition. Again, interest in the occult. Getting really in depth, actually, with the occult could be a thing during this time, right? Getting into research because of that Ketu and 8th house influence. Things that have to deal with getting to the bottom of things, getting into research, are going to be very appealing to you. So if you have the opportunity to get a job in something that requires a lot of research, you're definitely going to be favored for these activities during this time. And aside from this, there will be kind of a lack of interest, so towards the 4th house and the 8th house. So you will, if you are in a relationship, especially if you're married, you might feel a coldness in the relationship to your spouse's family of origin. A coldness, a disinterest, and this could be coming from your part or their part. Ketu going through the 12th house, also again looking at these other houses, can also show some kind of a loss connected to these things. So Ketu going through the 12th house can actually make you lose your religion, like Losing My Religion by REM, in the sense that you could be questioning, if, especially if you are following an organized religion or have followed an organized religion up until this point where this transit hits, you might find yourself questioning things. You know, you might find yourself instead being drawn to alternative spiritual practices as opposed to conventional organized religion. And it might also show like a lack of interest towards maybe taking care of your home. Also a lack of interest towards, like I said, your spouse's family of origin. Could also be a lack of interest towards debt and loan. So either you might ignore problems, like if you already have, let's say, debt to pay off, you might really neglect this issue. So be careful that you don't do that, right? Because you just may not care. Also anything that has to deal with, you know, finances, anything that's kind of boring bureaucracy might be something that you are neglecting, but you shouldn't really be neglecting it because it might get worse in the long run. Aside from that though, 8th house can also be psychology, which is kind of weird. It's kind of weird and it isn't, because of Ketu sitting in the 12th and aspecting these other water houses. Your intuition, like I said, is going to be very strong. So you're going to be less analytically inclined and less willing to look at your emotions maybe during this time. Instead, you might just seek to run with them and just make use of the newly found insights and the newly found, emotional intelligence as well, to some extent, the ability to just draw from the collective subconscious. And you may not feel particularly drawn to analyzing your emotions during this time, right? So if you have gone through therapy, for instance, you might suddenly decide that you want to stop going to therapy, just to give you an example. You might also suddenly lose interest in insurance itself, so might cancel out insurances. But again, be careful with this, because you don't want something bad to happen and to not be prepared. It's just that you will suddenly just not care anymore about these particular things. Yeah. Okay. So now when Jupiter is going to move into Cancer from around October 13th until the end of the year, it's going to be moving into your 11th house. It's going to aspect the 3rd and the 7th houses, right? So it's going to aspect all of the social houses, which is a very good thing, especially since Jupiter is going to be exalted in Cancer. So this is a very strong placement, especially for you, because it's going to be sitting in your 11th house, which is the house of gains, particularly the house of gains from your career. So once Jupiter is entering Cancer around October 13th, this is going to be the time to reap what you have sown, basically. And of course, the more you will work, the bigger the rewards are going to be during this time. And especially, again, when you are thinking about the efforts put into your career. Jupiter in the 11th will bring not just an increase of income, but it will also bring an increase of social recognition, of social status, and potentially the opportunity to expand your social circle. So like meeting new friends, new acquaintances, right? So aside from that, aside from the monetary aspect, which is also very positive, Jupiter in the 11th will also make you feel more benevolent. And of course, these things are going to go hand in hand, right? Because your attitude is going to be more friendly, more open, more idealistic and optimistic when it comes to your relationships to big groups of people, friends and acquaintances. People are just going to perceive you as more trustworthy, maybe more fun-loving, and it's going to be easier for you to build new connections, to establish new connections of any kind, and new friends even, potentially. Now, even when it comes to your existing friends, you might find yourself spending more time with them, right? Having a richer social life during this time. And the relationship to the elder sibling, again, is going to be very positive during this time. Jupiter is ruling the 4th house, and again, it's ruling the 7th house and going into your 11th. Now, this can show, of course, gains from 4th house and 7th house related activities. 7th house is partnerships. It's also the romantic partner. It's also partnership-based business or business in general, right? 7th house is one of the business houses. 4th house is real estate, vehicles, history, things that are hidden and private and all this stuff. So you might somehow be gaining out of all of these things. Again, this would be a great time to sell your home if you are looking to do that, because you might be getting more than the market value, or you could just be getting a really good price for it, right? Just to give you an example, or a very good time to sell your vehicle if you have vehicles for sale. And then with the 7th house, and this could be a good time to spend time with your partner as well as other people. So like socializing with your partner together as a couple. Very specifically for some of you, of course, not for everyone, some people might have an opportunity to go into business with a sibling, particularly an elder sibling. And or you could be going into business actually with your romantic partner and have some kind of a successful venture. Aside from that, your friends during this time are going to be very dependable. They're going to be almost kind of like gurus in a way. You're going to look up to them and ask them for advice, and they're generally going to give you pretty good directions. Because Jupiter is going to be in Cancer, it's going to be exalted. So it's a very healthy sort of Jupiter. You might also feel drawn to humanitarian causes during this time. You know, you might just care about humanity in general, and you're going to be more focused on how you can help large groups of people. It also makes large groups of people be more open to you, like I said, right? So you might get more favorable attention, positive support, and all that. So basically, overall, a boost in popularity. And with the aspect on the 3rd house and the 7th houses, again, this is further emphasizing the fact that your communication is going to be good. People will tend to trust you when you speak about anything. Pretty much, they're going to tend to see you as a wise person, wise and educated. And you're also going to be pretty favored when it comes to traveling, especially short-term or short-distance travel. And of course, last but not least, this is also a good time to meet a good romantic partner for the long term. But with respect to this, as I mentioned multiple times already, it's really important to check individual configurations to see what other supportive configurations you might find to suggest this. And let me think. Also, relationship with the siblings in general is going to be good. Relationship with neighbors is going to be good. And any form of communication is going to be favored during this time for you. So working on your communication. Yeah, it's going to be a pretty service-oriented time. You might find yourself being more idealistic, more focused on just being of service to people for the sake of service, and just wanting to contribute to the betterment of humanity. I see more of a humanitarian streak here. Okay, this is pretty much everything that I can see, all the major themes for Virgo 2025. And as I have mentioned in the introduction to this video, of course, you can also apply this to Virgo moon. And when you're applying it to the Virgo moon chart or the Chandra Lagna, basically that just means you're taking the moon as the ascendant, the moon sign as the ascendant, and you're looking at the rest of your horoscope from the perspective of that ascendant. If you look at the Chandra Lagna, you will see more of your inner workings, like your inner universe, right? So it's more it sheds more light into your emotional state, your inner world. Whereas when you look at it from the actual Lagna, it actually affects things in the physical world most likely. And yeah, but this has been pretty much it. And like I have mentioned, it would help a lot if you could listen to this entire video and comment in the comment section with how it resonated, especially for the first part of the year that has already passed. It would help a lot. Yes, not just for me, like I said, but also to other viewers who are going to be checking the comment section. Yeah, and thank you very much for listening as usual. And if you have found value in this video or in any other of my videos, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Click on the notifications bell to see when I will post a new video. Also, comment in the comment section with anything you would like to share, as long as you keep it respectful, of course. And if you're interested in becoming a member, you can check out the introductory part of this video. I have given a detailed description of what memberships entail. And you can also find more details by clicking on the join button under any of my videos, basically, to see the prices in the local currency, etc., and any other details. And aside from membership options, if you're interested, of course, in a private consultation, I do consultations on a wide variety of topics, and I will leave my email address in the video description. So if you're curious to find out more about what a personal consultation entails and what topics they are on, you can email me and I can send you more details and any kind of like, how should I put it, bureaucratic quote-unquote details about how to order, how long it takes, etc. Right. And last but not least, I also have a tarot channel, and I will be linking that in the video description as well. So if you're curious about tarot, go ahead and check it out. I have started that channel way more recently than this one. But it already has gathered quite a few followers, and I really enjoy doing tarot as well, and I've had some really good results with that as well. So yeah, if you are into tarot at all, go ahead and check it out. Maybe subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a nice rest of 2025. Bye.